You're standing in a line. You've been standing in this exact spot for 11 minutes. You haven't said a word. Neither has anyone else. No one is enforcing this. There's no rope, no guard, no sign. You could just walk to the front right now. Nothing would physically stop you. But you don't. You never do. Nobody ever does. Something in you enforces this rule more strictly than any law ever could. And it's not just you. It's every human, in every country, every single day. Billions of people quietly agreeing to a rule nobody wrote down. So what is actually going on here? And why does breaking this invisible rule make people want to fight you? Let's start from the very beginning. Not with etiquette, with math. 1909, Copenhagen. A telephone exchange, humming with switchboards. A Danish engineer sits alone at night with a mechanical calculator. He's not a psychologist. He doesn't care about feelings. He's trying to solve one brutally practical problem. How many phone lines does a city actually need? His name was Agner Krarp Erlang. He had no idea he was about to invent the mathematics of every line you've ever stood in. Erlang's formulas calculated exactly how long a queue should take and how many people it could hold before it collapsed into chaos. Every call center, every bank line, every airport security line still runs on his math today. But Erlang only solved the numbers. He never asked the stranger question. Why do humans wait in an orderly line at all? Because here's the thing. In nature, nothing waits in line. Watch a pack of wolves at a fresh kill. There is no order. There is no turn-taking. The biggest, strongest, most aggressive animal eats first. Every single time. Chickens have an entire social structure built on this. Scientists literally call it the pecking order. Size, teeth, antlers, claws, sheer aggression. That's how access gets decided in the wild. No species lines up politely and waits its turn. Except one. You. Soft. Slow. Unarmed. No claws. No horns. No venom. And yet you'll stand behind a complete stranger at a coffee shop for 11 minutes without touching them. You won't push. You won't shove. You won't even complain out loud. Something in your brain is actively suppressing an instinct older than your entire species. The instinct to grab the resource first. To not wait. To not risk losing it to someone else. So who installed this override? And why does it work on almost everyone, almost all the time? In 1939, a German-British sociologist named Norbert Elias published a theory that answers exactly this. He called it the civilizing process. His argument was simple and a little unsettling. Humans never actually lost the instinct to fight over resources. We just built an invisible social contract powerful enough to override it. Table manners, personal space, waiting your turn. All of it is the same mechanism. A set of rules whose entire purpose is to stop violence before it starts. A queue isn't politeness. A queue is outsourced violence prevention. It's a piece of invisible social infrastructure, just like a law, except nobody has to enforce it with a badge. You enforce it. I enforce it. Everyone in that line enforces it on everyone else, silently. But this was only the surface. Because the moment this invisible contract gets broken, something genuinely strange happens to people. In 1986, a researcher ran a field experiment most people have never heard of. His name was Stanley Milgram. Yes, that Milgram. The obedience experiments. This time, he wasn't studying obedience to authority. He was studying something closer to home. Milgram and his team sent Confederates to cut into real lines. 129 of them across New York City. Ticket lines, betting windows, train counters, ordinary places, ordinary days. Each Confederate walked up and quietly inserted themselves between two strangers. No shouting, no shoving, just a calm, silent line cut. And the reaction was almost never calm. In roughly 1 out of every 10 lines, people got physical, pushing, grabbing, shoving the intruder out. In most other lines, people verbally confronted the intruder, visibly angry, sometimes shaking, over something that, mathematically, cost them about 90 extra seconds of waiting. 90 seconds. That's it. That's the entire material loss. So why does losing 90 seconds make a calm, civilized adult want to grab a stranger? Because your brain isn't actually calculating time. It's calculating something else entirely. A queue is a visible, physical record of social rank in the moment. Your position is your status. When someone cuts in, they're not just stealing 90 seconds. They're publicly declaring that your position in the group doesn't matter. Your ancient brain reads that as a status threat. And status threats, for most of human history, meant survival threats. That's why the rage feels so disproportionate. It isn't about the 90 seconds. It never was. But here's where it gets genuinely strange, because it turns out this feeling can be engineered. And once companies realize that people don't actually hate waiting, they hate feeling powerless while waiting, everything changed. In 1985, a researcher named David Maister published a short paper that quietly reshaped the entire service industry. It was called The Psychology of Waiting Lines. Maister's core discovery: the actual number of minutes you wait barely matters. What matters is how the wait feels. Occupied time feels shorter than unoccupied time. Give people something to do, and the wait shrinks in their mind. Uncertain waits feel longer than waits with a known endpoint. Unexplained waits feel longer than explained ones. Unfair waits feel longer than fair ones. Anxious waits feel longer than calm ones. None of this changes the actual clock. All of it changes you. And once this was documented, it stopped being an accident. It became a design tool. Take Disney. Their theme park queues are, by design, not primarily built to move you faster. They're built to make the wait itself feel like part of the show. Screens, decorations, sounds, interactive props, all positioned inside the line so your brain registers activity instead of stillness. You're still standing in the exact same spot for the exact same amount of time. But your brain has been quietly convinced that something is happening. Airports run an almost identical trick, just with numbers instead of decorations. Boarding zones. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Priority, Elite, General. In 2008, an astrophysicist named Jason Steffen actually modeled airplane boarding mathematically. His conclusion: zone-based boarding is often no faster than just letting people board randomly. Sometimes it's slower. So why do airlines keep the zones? Because the zones were never really about speed. They're about making you feel like you have a rank, a priority, a reason you deserve to go first. It's the same status signal as a place in line, just repackaged and sold back to you. Supermarkets figured out a version of this decades earlier, and it came from an actual mathematical problem. For most of the 20th century, stores used multiple separate lines, one per register. The problem: some lines moved fast, others crawled, and customers picked wrong constantly. Erlang's math, the same math from that Copenhagen telephone exchange, had already solved this back in 1909. One single line feeding multiple counters is mathematically fairer and, on average, faster for everyone. Banks knew this. In the 1960s, some began switching to a single serpentine line, and customers hated it at first. It looked longer. It felt longer, even though it moved faster. People almost walked out of banks rather than join a line that merely looked intimidating. The math was correct. The feeling was wrong. And the feeling is what almost killed a better system. Which tells you something important. The actual efficiency of a queue was never really the point businesses cared about. The feeling of the queue was always the real product being managed. Let's go back to that telephone exchange in Copenhagen one more time. Erlang wasn't trying to make anyone feel good. He just wanted the phone lines to not collapse. He never met Norbert Elias. He never met David Maister. He never saw a theme park or an airport gate. But every one of them was describing pieces of the exact same invisible machine. A machine built out of human nervous systems, running a program none of us remember installing. And once you see the machine, you can't unsee it. Every line you've ever stood in was two things happening at once. An ancient survival mechanism, keeping violence from breaking out over a limited resource. And a modern system, quietly using that mechanism to manage your patience, your spending, and your sense of rank. Companies didn't invent your instinct to wait your turn. They just found the switch. Here's the uncomfortable part, though. This isn't just about theme parks and airports. Every cue you've ever silently obeyed was you running code older than your own language. 40,000 years ago, a member of your ancestral group who challenged the social order paid for it. Exile, isolation, loss of protection. In small groups, that was often a death sentence. The ones who challenged rank recklessly didn't survive long enough to pass that trait on. The ones who waited, who read the group's order and respected it, kept their place in the tribe. And they survived. And they reproduced. And they passed that same quiet compliance on to you. You're not standing in that coffee line because you're polite. You're standing there because somewhere in you is a genuinely ancient alarm system. One that still equates breaking rank with risking your place in the group. And modern companies simply learned to play that alarm system like an instrument. They didn't create your fear of social rejection. They just built queues, zones, and priority lanes on top of it. Every serpentine line, every boarding zone, every loyalty tier is the same lever, pulled a different way. And it works, because the lever was never really about logistics. It was always about status, and status has been a survival currency for longer than money has existed. So here's the twist. The queue that looks like the most mundane, boring part of your day is actually one of the oldest running systems in your entire nervous system. Older than your phone. Older than the store you're standing in. Older than most of human history you were ever taught. And it's running right now, in the background, every single time you wait your turn without thinking about it. You've never once had to consciously decide not to shove past a stranger. The decision was made for you, generations before you were born. Which means the next time someone cuts in line and you feel that flash of genuine anger, that's not you being petty. That's 40,000 years of social survival math running in real time. And the next time a company hands you a priority boarding pass or a VIP fast lane, that's not a convenience. That's someone else pressing the exact button your ancestors built to keep you calm. None of this makes the queue fake, or the fear fake, or the system evil in some cartoonish way. It just means almost nothing about waiting your turn is as simple as it looks. A queue is a truce. A very, very old one, between your instincts and everyone else's. Every stranger standing behind you and every stranger standing in front of you has silently agreed to the same terms. Not to grab, not to shove, not to declare themselves more important than the group's order. It's one of the quietest agreements our species has ever made, and one of the oldest. So the next time you're standing in a line, doing nothing, saying nothing, obeying a rule that nobody wrote down and nobody is enforcing with a badge or a weapon, you're not being patient. You're just running the oldest program you own. Don't be the one who breaks the line.